Jananeem Sharadam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Sritva Pranamami Muhurmuhu. It's always a matter of great joy to talk about the Holy Mother. What an extraordinary life the Mother led. Her personality shines through every role she played in life. First as a young child, then as a daughter, as an elder sister, as a wife, as a spiritual companion of an avatara, a guru, and then finally, above all, as an extraordinary mother. Actually, how do we really understand the Holy Mother? We are reminded of the famous Upanishadic statement, Kasmin bhago vijñāte sarvamitam vijñātum bhavati. So, what is that by knowing which everything else is known? In the same way, what is the one aspect of Holy Mother through which everything else about her can be truly understood? Because every role that she played in life seems to be extremely wonderful, extremely attractive, extremely adorable, so to say. As a very young, practically in her childhood, she started helping her mother in the fields, in the agricultural activities. And when she became slightly older, when it was really time for her to play and enjoy fun, she was taking care of her siblings, so to say. She got married to Sri Ramakrishna at a very, very young age. Then finally, when he reached Dakshineshwar around the age of, say, maybe 16, 17, then a new journey started. She really served him as an extremely devoted wife, not waiting for him to ask for anything, but then she would do everything that was required for Sri Ramakrishna, who had to be really taken care of like a child because of his extraordinary spiritual moods. It was not only as a Sahadharmani or wife she lived with Sri Ramakrishna, she was his spiritual companion, so to say. And then, after his Mahasamadhi, she became, over a period of time, a really adorable guru and showed the path of spiritual transformation to thousands of people. And finally, above all this, there was one all-encompassing aspect of the Holy Mother as the most adorable mother that seems to satisfy every request, every demand, whatever that was asked of her. So, she lived with Sri Ramakrishna. Her ideal of life was also same as Sri Ramakrishna, namely realization of God. But then she did not undertake the type of intense austerities or tapasya which Sri Ramakrishna did. Rather, she had her own unique style. She developed a wonderful way of life, which brought great dignity to the idea of wife. And then she revived virtually the Vedic ideal at the same time as an ideal for the modern woman. She became a kind of a role model in a sense. So, what is the type of tapasya that Holy Mother performed? Because, she never went to any forest, she did not go to any secluded place. She always lived in the society and quite often under most trying circumstances. She was constantly surrounded by her family members who were very worldly minded and were demanding forever from her for money and other help. But in and through all that, she always kept up her deep spiritual nature, and she did a sadhana of an extraordinary dimension. So if you go deeply into the life of the Holy Mother, the Holy Mother's life was also one of tapasya, but it was a tapasya of a different nature, an austerity of a different nature. Perhaps there are three aspects to this austerity or tapasya of the Holy Mother. The first of which is what we call as acceptance. This acceptance is an extraordinary idea in her life. To give an example, supposing there is a theatre or drama being enacted, there are various characters, say like the queen, her sevikas, then there is also a beggar, and so many others. And at the end of the drama, the person who played the role of the beggar was given the first prize, not the one who played the role of the Rani or the queen. Why? It's because that person played her role to perfection. So, if you see in the Holy Mother's life also, whatever role she had to play at a particular time, she played it to perfection, and that's how she always emerged victorious, or she was so successful. So, if you see her life everywhere, this quality of acceptance was very, very dominant in her life. From her young age, if you see, while the other children would have preferred to play and have fun and frolic, she had to look after her younger siblings, and she accepted that role and she played it to perfection. She never ever thought of, why am I to do all that? Why not I also have fun like other girls of the village or the girls of her age? Rather, she was extremely happy and contented to do that work, namely looking after her younger brothers. Later on, even when she came to Dakshineshwar, of course, in between also, on several occasions, there were demands of her that she should play so many other roles, and every time she accepted them and performed them to perfection. Now, even after she came to Sri Ramakrishna, she had to live in such a small room. There was hardly enough space for a tall person to, stretch oneself fully. It was so small a room, and there were also so many other things necessary for Sri Ramakrishna's service had to be kept. And then now and then, sometimes lady devotees would come, they would talk to Sri Ramakrishna, they would forget the sense of time, it would be late for them to return to their homes, and Sri Ramakrishna would send them to Nahabat to take rest. And the Holy Mother seemed to have infinite space in Nahabat, and whoever came would be accommodated. So, she was extremely happy and contented to live in that small space without ever uttering a word of complaint. Much more than that, there was not even facilities for, taking bath or answering the calls of nature, etc. She would get up at 3 a.m. in the morning, finish her bath, everything, say by 4 or so, come back, sit for japa, and she would never ever even come out of the room. Sometimes, in the afternoons or so, Sri Ramakrishna himself would ask her to go and to talk to some neighbors. Otherwise, she was content to stay in that very room throughout the day, never even coming out once. Imagine someone to live that way, and she never did it grudgingly or in a dissatisfied manner. She had completely accepted this, and she was so happy and contented to live that way. Because later on, she would say, people often come and tell me that they are, feeling the lack of peace and so on, Ashanti. She says, I never ever experienced. I was living at Dakshineshwar under such difficult circumstances, yet I would always feel a picture of bliss was placed inside my heart. That was her feeling. So, that is because she had accepted the inevitable and played her role to perfection. More than that, her own husband, who was hailed as an avatara even during his lifetime, was living at a distance of less than 100 feet, and she couldn't even go and meet him once a day. Of course, she had the concession, she would carry his food every day after the Sandhya Kal, after the evening. His night supper she used to carry. Even that, so one day Golapma, somebody said that I would take it, and then onwards she started taking Sri Ramakrishna's food, carrying Sri Ramakrishna's food for him to take. And even that privilege was deprived. So much of Kirtan, so much of discussions about spiritual matters, such mirth, such God consciousness, such an atmosphere of intense spiritual, vibration that everybody would come and enjoy. Mother was just at a distance of 100 feet. She couldn't even go there. But she was never ever, resentful about this. She had, in that screen, the bamboo screen, there was a small hole, and through that she would stand all that while, strain her ears, strain her eyes, and somehow manage to listen to some of the conversations going on in Sri Ramakrishna's room. Of course, she developed very severe rheumatism as she grew older because of this practice of standing for long hours. But then, she was extremely happy, extremely contented. That's because of this quality. She had completely accepted this, and she was happy to perform her role to perfection under such conditions. Not only that, after Sri Ramakrishna's Mahasamadhi, Sri Ramakrishna had told her, you go and live at Kamarpukur, don't stretch your hands by way of seeking anything from anyone. So she went and she lived there almost for 8 or 9 months. She didn't even have an alternate piece of cloth to wear. The same cloth she would have to wash and wear, and to develop several, so to say, turns and holes, and she would tie knots and then use the same cloth. Quite often she didn't have any vegetables. If there was some greens, there would be no salt. If there was salt, there was no greens. Somehow she managed for 8 or 9 months, and all the while without a word of complaint. She was extremely contented to be in that condition. She had accepted that, and that opportunity she converted into an extraordinary practice of tapasya and austerity. So that is how she really evolved. Then later on, the devotees somehow brought her to Calcutta, so the conditions improved. But then, she never used all those to her advantage. She never ever indulged in the least of convenience or luxury, whatever you might say. She would always be surrounded by a lot of people. There will be plenty of things. People would bring gifts, people bring fruits, sweets and so on. But she would distribute all of them. And she would make sure that everybody in the household took food, prasad. And after that only every day around maybe 1:32, that was the time she would take her noon prasad. That was her practice every day. She wouldn't eat even if a single son or daughter of hers had not yet taken her noon prasad. That was her practice. But then again, once again, she was so happy, extremely happy to see that everyone was taken care of, everyone was well fed, and she was just taking at the end of it. Quite often not much would be left for her, but she was so happy. So this has been her practice throughout. Not only that, later on even when during her own birthday, there will be lots of crowds coming to salute her, to offer pranams to her, but she remained the same. So, that is how her life continued. One of, continued state of acceptance, accepting the situation, living according to that, and turning out to be an extraordinary role model. That was her acceptance. Now we know this quality of acceptance of the Holy Mother. How did it really influence her devotees? How they really, benefited from that? Yes, most certainly. In fact, you can give any number of examples, but of course we don't have that much time. Let us take a very simple example. A young widow by name Kirot Balarai. She was probably in her early 20s when she met the Holy Mother. She had come with a tremendous sense of longing for the Holy Mother. Meeting her and surrendering at the Holy Mother's feet was the one object of her life. It appears it was the only thing for which she was living for. The Holy Mother recognized her at the very first sight. Of course, all this because, the idea of acceptance has another dimension. When one accepts life like that, one becomes truly expanded. One is able to see, when one accepts, one is able to see all around. Quite often we live completely oblivious of our surroundings, living in our own world. But if one develops this quality of acceptance, such a person's vision and view truly expands, and such a person is able to see all around and realize that sufferings, hardships, dukkha, etc. are not just experienced only by themselves. There were millions around them in the world who are much worse off, are suffering much more, or in much more difficult conditions or surroundings. As a result, their heart expands, they start truly feeling for others. That is why, the Holy Mother used to say, whenever people come to me, I realize in what conditions they are, and that's why I am so eager to grant them mukti or salvation. Not only that, she would say that, I wish I had a much bigger body. With a small frame of mind, I am not able to serve enough. I would like to do much more, serve much more, so that, people are taken care of. Not only that, she would say that people take diksha, but they don't really do japa or other sadhanas. So she would keep on, even till almost the last days of her life, she would do something like 1,00,000 of japa for every day. Why? It's because of the compassion. And this compassion in her, of course, all this if you explain from an earthly point of view, it's because of this great quality of acceptance that really brought about this other dimension in her personality. So, coming back to that Kirot Balarai, this young lady came, she had subjected herself to such tremendous austerities, she was virtually skin and bone. Mother was so compassionate, so kind to her. Again and again she assured her. But then, because of that, she made her realize, this lady, even at the first sight of the Holy Mother, became so charmed by Mother that she wanted to be with her. She wanted to be a renunciate. She wanted to give up everything. She said, I cannot live in this world, Mother, you know that. I cannot survive in samsara. The Holy Mother never encouraged her to completely shift to the Holy Mother's household. She said, one should not live day and night with the Guru, then one would observe the defects of the Guru and develop ashraddha. Rather, she said, you should live somewhere close by and come every day. It came as a shock to this Kirot Bala. She was thinking that Holy Mother would absorb her, accept her. Yes, Holy Mother gave her tremendous shelter and protection. But then she made her understand that this is what is for you. This is how you should evolve in life. This Kirot Bala accepted that this is her lot. She has to live in the household. She has to be a householder and evolve, and she truly evolved. Later, much later, in her 60s, in her reminiscences, she writes, my life is one of continuous bliss from the time I met the Holy Mother. I have never ever suffered afterwards. So that was possible because Holy Mother brought in her the idea of acceptance, and which this Kirodbala Roy did. So talking about the compassion of the Holy Mother, one day this Kirodbala, she was doing pranam to the Holy Mother, but her hand was wrapped in a cloth. Similarly, another lady did. Actually, she didn't want to offer her pranams to Holy Mother that day because she had some very bad wounds in her right arm and she didn't want to touch the mother's feet. But at the same time, she saw another lady was offering pranams to the Holy Mother, wrapping her fingers around her cloth, and she also did that way. While the mother did not ask anything about the other woman, she asked Kirod, why did you do pranams like that? Why didn't you do the normal way? Kirodbala had to say, she said, Mother, I once years ago, I cut this papaya vegetable and prepared some curries, etc. And somehow I developed some terrible blisters, and ever since then it keeps on occurring. The hand becomes really bad and it is in such a terrible condition. I don't want to touch your feet. See Holy Mother's reaction. The Holy Mother was almost in tears. My child, what has happened to me? I am so immersed in my own world. I didn't even notice this. My daughter is suffering so much. I didn't notice. Mother was almost in tears, and this is Mother's compassion. Then she said, come, Thakur's puja is over. The Nirmalya flowers and the Charanamrita water, they are in that kamandalu. You go and dip your hand in that, and this disease will never recur again. Of course, as far as possible, try to avoid cutting onion or fish, etc. Probably you cannot avoid that, but that day come back, immediately dip your hands in the Charanamrita or the sacred feet of water, the feet of Thakur, and this blisters will go away. You will never suffer again. And she was miraculously cured. Within a couple of days, all those blisters, wounds disappeared, and she was completely cured of the disease. Of course, it was a small, maybe rarest of the rare miracles which Holy Mother had enacted. But then, see Mother's compassion. Because she had accepted her own life with all its limitations, that only expanded her heart and made her such an extraordinary personality. So, another example, if you would like to say, this Holy Mother's idea of this acceptance is this Radhu. Radhu, how much she troubled the Holy Mother when the Mother was alive. It all happened very differently after the passing away of the Mother. Towards the end of her life, it was recognized that Radhu was suffering from tuberculosis. So I think one of the monks had taken her to Varanasi, and they wanted to leave her there to pass away so that she would get mukti. But somehow she guessed, and she said, oh, you are leaving me here to die thinking that I will get mukti. Don't you know that one who did so much for me, took so much care of me, had made every arrangement for me? She had made provision for me to stay in Jairampati. Take me there. I will die there. I will certainly get mukti because my mukti is in my own hands because it has been arranged by the Holy Mother. You see what that acceptance has taken her to what a level. Because of the Mother's influence, seeing this aspect in Mother's life, she accepted, and then this inevitable, that she would have to die of an incurable disease also didn't really disturb her beyond a point. She was ready to die peacefully at Jairampati, and this is the level to which Mother could raise her devotees because of her own life, her own example. Now the second aspect of this extraordinary life of tapasya of Holy Mother is the capacity to adjust and accommodate. Adjust and accommodate. Time and again you would find, under ever so many circumstances, the ability of the Mother to adjust and accommodate to the demands, the situations. There are so many examples. First of all, the way she lived in Nabat itself is a great example. During the days when they were on a pilgrimage, several times, not only pilgrimage, perhaps they were coming from Calcutta to Jairambati or Jairambati to Calcutta during one of the travels, somewhere, they have to halt at several places, then the whole entourage, the whole party would camp, and the cooking will be done, and all the prasada would be offered food, because the Holy Mother had a image or picture of Thakur which she would carry during her tours, and she would take out that picture, offer rice, vegetable, etc. to Thakur, then the prasad would be distributed, and then the party would continue. But then one day when the cooking was done, the rice pot was about to be brought down from the oven. Suddenly it slipped from the hands of the person, and the pot fell down and it was broken. The rice was splashed. So everybody was stunned. Now what to do? They have to start in another half an hour's time. Those days they had to travel during the daytime. Otherwise some of the places on the way were risky to travel after dark. There were dacoits and others. So they had to start immediately. Now what to do? How to offer the food to Thakur when the rice, etc. had fallen on the floor, the mud ground? Immediately, mother, without batting an eyelid, asked people to give some plates or something, took rice from the upper portion so that the mud does not stick to the rice. Like that she gathered such food, then offered it to Thakur, saying that today this is all I could offer, please take it, be satisfied, and then the rest of the party could have a light lunch and then start. You see, what an extraordinary idea of adjustment and accommodation. This is what made Holy Mother so great. She was not a stickler for rules. No, such food cannot be offered to Thakur, it has to be cooked again, and so on and so forth. Like that, there are so many instances of Holy Mother, her capacity to adjust, to accommodate. Now that is how she could live with such people, her own brothers, their family. And then this Radhu's her mother, the mad aunt Surabala. Such characters, Nalini, always worried about purity, external purity. How mother would adjust, how mother would accommodate all that. Another incident is also extremely revealing. It was her own birthday at Jairambati that was being celebrated. A huge crowd had come. People had lined up to offer their pranams. But Holy Mother was not to be seen. Where was she? She was deep inside in the inner apartment, preparing special food for Suhasini, who was the youngest daughter-in-law of the house, the wife of one of her brothers, because she was in the family way, and mother knew that nobody would look after her on such a day of celebration. So she herself was preparing a special diet for her. See what the ability to adjust, to accommodate, to care for everyone. She was perfectly aware of everything that was happening around. Her feet were so grounded, on earth, she would never miss anything. So, we can go on and on. There are several instances of such adjustment and accommodation in Holy Mother's life. Similarly, this happened even in that Kirpala's life. Our idea is, what these qualities, how they really benefited the devotees. Again, go back to this young widow's life. Holy Mother never altered the situation or conditions for her. She made her to adjust, to accommodate, to learn. One day it was a Kali Puja day. This young widow who had never stirred out onto the streets without the help of an escort, or quite often in a vehicle, suddenly the Holy Mother said, it was evening time almost, now you go to Sudhiradi at Sister Nivedita's school, meet her, and then offer pranams to her, and then go and meet Gaurdasi, that is Gaurima, who was in the Sardeshwari ashram. Later on it became Sardeshwari ashram. She was renunciate, living with a few young girls, training them in a perfect way. She had never gone alone. She asked, should I go alone? Should I go in a vehicle? No, you go walking, you go alone. How long would you remain a minor? She was teaching her adjustment and accommodation, how to adjust. She knew that this girl would have to live many, many years. She would have to survive by herself. She can't survive just with the help of others. Mother was training her meticulously. And she inquired everybody, somehow went and reached Sudhira's place at Sisanivida's school. And after meeting her and saluting her, Sudhira said that you stay here, it would be late when you go back. No, I have no permission to stay. Mother has asked me to go and meet Gaurima. I have to go there. Again, she did not know. She had never been there before. She had never ever walked. It was such a long distance. She still walked all the way. She asked somebody here, there. Somehow went and met Gaurima. And when she went and knocked the door and said, I have been sent by the Holy Mother, Gaurima came and opened the door. It was already getting slightly late, and Gaurima had brought a lantern with her. Seeing this young child widow, Gaurima was simply, overwhelmed. She kind of, waved that lantern around her as if she was doing aarti for this young woman who was such a favorite disciple of the Holy Mother. And Gaurima talked almost 2 hours standing, and this girl was standing at the doorstep, Gaurima was standing there. 2 hours she talked about Thakur Ma, etc. She said, don't think that Holy Mother is an ordinary person. Remember, she is so extraordinary, she is verily the goddess herself, and you have taken shelter at her feet. You don't have to worry about anything. And then suddenly she remembered, yes, today is Kali Puja, let us go and worship the Mother. Then Kirodbala said, I don't have permission. Mother never said I should come back. She said I should go back to my house. She said, no, I will speak to the Mother. She gathered also 1 or 2 young disciples, fresh flowers, sandal paste, bilva leaves, etc. All of them came walking all the way. In the streets, people were looking aghast at them. In those days, around Sandhya, even slightly after that, no one would see women walking that way. But they were absolutely, not bothered about anything. Their one idea was to go and reach the Holy Mother. When they reached, by the time all the others had done their offering of Pranam and had left, and Gaurima and these people were the last. Initially, Mother remarked, Gauridasi has come after making a lot of noise. But then she allowed them. See, this Kirodbala writes, it was a sight to see the way Gaurima was worshipping the Holy Mother. It was as if it was regular ritual worship. It went on for quite some time. All these girls worshipped. And then Gaurima said to Mother, Ma, Kirod said she has no permission to come back. I have brought her. And Mother said, you did well. And that day Kirodbala stayed there, and she says it was an unforgettable experience in my life. So, this is how Holy Mother trained this ability to adjust and accommodate. Not only that, this was the quality which perhaps Swami Shantatmananda also had picked up from the Holy Mother. That is why Swamiji made him the General Secretary of the order. His ability to adjust and accommodate. He was General Secretary for about a quarter century. And then, he was so perfect in his administration. Anyone could come and relate to him, talk to him, unburden themselves. He was, capable of supreme accommodation and adjustment. Of course, we have many, many examples. We don't have much time. Let us speak about the third aspect, the last aspect, that is a spiritual orientation, a higher dimension to one's life. Unless this is brought into one's life, it's not possible to lead a life of, completeness or a fulfilling life. So, the 3 major aspects of Holy Mother's tapasya: acceptance, adjustment and accommodation, and a sense of higher orientation, a spiritual dimension to life. Mother herself would say something like this. Someone is caught, in floods or something like that. There is water all around. He is struggling. Then, after a great struggle, he sees a piece of land which is totally dry, and somehow he swims and reaches that place. And standing there, he watches, he sees waters all around, but he feels that he is completely safe and secure in that piece of land which is totally dry. My mother used to say that, difficulties, problems, troubles, and suffering, sorrows, everything would come in one's life. These are all part and parcel of life. But if there is a small piece of land like the dry land, our own, niche area, where we can retreat, where we can go, and where we can take shelter and feel completely protected, that is the spiritual orientation of one's life. And for that she would say that this is possible through prayer. And that was what she was doing. Always praying to Sri Ramakrishna. That was her greatest support. She would always retreat to that area where she would feel absolutely safe and secure. This dependence on Thakur, complete surrender to him through prayer and through such disciplines, this spiritual dimension of her life was an integral part of the tapasya or the extraordinary austerities that she performed. Actually, all this also came in the life of others. For example, this Khirodbala. Again, mother told her, you see, you have taken refuge in Thakur. Because again Khirodbala would complain, I can't live in samsara. I cannot live amongst worldly people. Please liberate me. Please take me. I want to live such a life which is completely dedicated to a spiritual pursuit. But Holy Mother said, how living in the situation where she was, how at the same time she could, through prayer, through surrendering herself to Thakur, surrendering to Thakur because of the faith that he would redeem her. Again and again, any number of times, Holy Mother assured her. She would say that I don't feel I am progressing much in spiritual life. I don't feel that kind of a tremendous bhava, feeling when I do sadhana. Holy Mother says, now how do you know? Rest assured that you are progressing. Thakur is taking care of you. Surrender to him. Live with that idea. And this is what really redeemed that lady, and she went on to live a great life. There are, of course, many such examples where, because of Holy Mother's guidance, they all, took to this kind of a spiritual ideal. Of course, Holy Mother guided many people according to their own needs. But one or other aspect of these three extraordinary traits of Holy Mother's tapasya, namely acceptance, adjustment and accommodation, finally a spiritual orientation or a higher spiritual ideal in one's life, these were the hallmarks, these were the specialties of Holy Mother through which she guided all her disciples, all the monks and anyone who came to her. So, it's an extraordinary life, incomparable, because, the worship of Divine Mother as Goddess as Divine Mother or Mother is well known in the Hindu tradition. Great sadhakas like Kamalakanta, Ram Prasad and others had literally seen and talked to the Divine Mother. But it was a kind of divinity which was quite apart from humanity. But here for the first time, it appears the Divine Mother assumed a human form and lived amongst us, lived amongst most ordinary circumstances, in fact very trying circumstances, in a truly earthly way, and then yet showed her extraordinarily divine motherhood. So I think, all of us are extremely blessed, extremely fortunate to have come under the guidance and protection of this extraordinary Mother. May we all offer our prayers, our humble prayers at her lotus feet, and pray that may we be granted bhakti and shraddha at her lotus feet, so that we may be led to the supreme destination of human life. Om yatagne dahika shakti Ramakrishne sitahiya sarva vidya swarupam tam Sharadam pranamamyaham.